Today's video is brought to you by TacoRack.com, America's only taco cookware. Click the link below, TacoRack.com.
Alternative Media Television. More than 50,000 subscribers. 9.8 million YouTube views. 1 million last month. The #1 grassroots media organization. Our passion for liberty and truth is unmatched. Hard-hitting and in-your-face AM TV anchor Christopher Green.
Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Green Wave TV, Alternative Media Television. This keeps getting crazier and crazier and more insane. A blast, a massive seismic earthquake 2.0 plus equivalent rocks a small town north of Waco post the Boston explosions that occurred on April 15th, on Patriots Day, the commemoration, celebration of the American Revolutionary War, the first two battles, Concord and Lexington. A good point, a lot of people didn't even pick up on. It also came on the heels of North Korea's intensifying rhetoric. Remember, I've been talking about this for several weeks now, that what we're getting from North Korea, all this fear-mongering from the United States government, that North Korea is, suddenly going to be a flashpoint for World War III, and, they're declaring that they're going to, nuke us at any moment, and that, we need to be frightened to raise the terror level up to infinity. I've been talking specifically about the fact that that is American propaganda being spewed by the mainstream media and the administration for a reason. The question is what? And as we dig deeper into that, why? So just a few days later, after that intensifying rhetoric, we had the explosions go off in Boston. And the initial gut reaction, of course, which I've discussed in length, was, oh my God, this just smells horrible. This is a big pile of you-know-what. This is a potential false flag. That was the original assessment. And now more data and more corroborating evidence has come out, graphic evidence, photography, internet sleuths running through hundreds and hundreds of photos from the attack, authenticating, and at the very least, raising eyebrows and raising significant questions around who the perpetrators actually were. Military personnel dressed in khakis, military-grade khakis, boots, wearing the Navy SEAL cap, the same cap that Chris Kyle wore, who was conveniently murdered a few months ago, not too long ago, a leader within the militia and patriot movement. So all of this is swirling. All of this is happening right now. Now, I broke a report last night on the Waco explosion, the fertilizer explosion, which immediately I thought, oh my God, these events, there is not a question in my mind, there is no doubt that these events are connected, that Waco is connected to Boston. But people are like, hey Chris, hold on, wait a minute, let's not jump to conclusions. Well, I want to spend a little bit of the morning today connecting some of the dots for you to show you how I am connecting the dots, show you why I am assessing this situation as I currently am. Because again, it doesn't smell right. The biggest thing to me when Boston hit and it rocked the world, the most suspicious part of it, #1, is the timing. April 15th, Patriots Day, the commemoration of the week of Waco, of the Oklahoma City bombing, how this ties in with the MK Ultra CIA PSYOP killers, Adam Lanza, Jared Holmes, all of these psychotropic medicated killers being used to fearmonger us by the administration for this gun legislation. The Senate, take note, yesterday, thankfully, and I'm very proud of the Senate, rejects Obama's gun legislation. They don't get the 60 votes needed. And all of a sudden, we get another blast out of Waco. Now, people want to honestly, there's people out there that believe that this stuff isn't suspicious. I mean, there's people that honestly think that a major blast, a major bomb going off in Waco, the north of Waco in this small town, fertilizer. It's fertilizer too. Remember I talked about, don't ban pressure cookers, don't ban guns. If you're going to ban guns, well, you might as well ban pressure cookers. If you're going to ban pressure cookers, you might as well ban fertilizer, ball bearings, Nike, marathons, Home Depot, etc. All on the same time frame of the commemoration of these events. So, think from the perspective of the terrorist for a minute. If you're insane enough and crazy enough to actually use a pressure cooker as a device to blow up and murder runners at the Boston Marathon, are you not also crazy enough to think about and give a little thought to the timing of your attack to make a statement? If you're willing to go that far, usually these killers, 9 times out of 10, are usually above average intelligence. They're typically fairly smart individuals. A lot of them, the legitimate ones, I don't think it's a legitimate terror attack. I think it's a false flag. I think that everything we're seeing factually is indicative of that right now. But it's the timing. Again, the timing is so devilishly suspicious. Now we have a Waco blast go off. And all of this can be historically, accurately depicted from what we've seen in the past with these types of events before. Countless examples. Too many to count. Look at all the people that have suddenly died within the Patriot Liberty movement just over the past few months. Chris Kyle. There's a YouTuber, and I keep forgetting his name. Not really a mainstreamer, but had a pretty good following, who was suddenly convicted after a 3rd trial of child molestation. Some of you know who I'm talking about. In fact, I'm thinking about doing an investigative report or a small report on him. But he's tried 3 times. A former Iraq veteran, very anti-government, pro-militia, etc. He suddenly is, locked away in prison for life. It goes all the way back to Andrew Breitbart. It even goes all the way back to Pat Tillman, a local hero in my home state who was murdered by the military, by the United States military. That's now the declassified official story. Remember how they lied to us, propagandized us, and he was killed by Al-Qaeda? That was a lie, just like WMDs were a lie. Again, Gulf of Tonkin, all of these events, September 11th, George W. Bush's, predication that, we need to go invade Iraq, even though Saudis came, supposedly, and blew up the buildings at the World Trade Center, and the 3rd one that miraculously was detonated and demolished without being hit. That in response to that, we need to go to Iraq. Again, the federal government's killing people all day long overseas, men, women, and children. I think that they're not doing here is insane. Anwar al-Awlaki, he's another very good example. Gitmo, in the hunger strikes, I've reported on that recently. All the people that are there unlawfully, that aren't getting a hearing, not getting a trial. So again, there's almost too many examples to count. Sirhan, all these declassified operations, FBI, CIA, PSYOPs. This is a part of the government system. Let's get real here for a minute. This is a part of the government operation. So the rhetoric that we've been getting out of North Korea, I've had my eye and my feelers up, especially abnormally over the past few weeks, because, as somebody that is in this, full-time 24/7 and literally eat, breathes, and sleeps it, I know when they're positioning things. I know when we're getting close to the turning points, to the events. Boston, in the marathon explosion, major event. Will be leveraged politically for political gain to accomplish the Obama administration's goal of gun confiscation, registration on a very large scale. They're talking about giving the UN, the United Nations, authority on this. It'll be part of a much larger comprehensive package now that we have bombs going off in Waco. For those of you that say, Chris, you're jumping to conclusions, let's go to a report here, which I want to show you, which is coming from the White House, their official story, at least at this point. They're saying that the Waco blast is suspicious. They're not saying it's an accident. And again, this all goes back down to the historical timing of all this happening. Honestly, are we expected to believe it's a coincidence that this all happens April 15th, Patriots Day, and now the Waco blast on the same week of the Waco anniversary. No, this smells rotten, smells to high heaven, and it is clearly going to be linked to the Patriot movement, the Liberty movement, to demonize it. And this is all a part of the program. It has been from day one. Because again, you're the enemy now, America. And this is what the CIA and the FBI is working to achieve through the Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, and the DHS. Let's dig into these reports here. Hopefully the computer doesn't crash like it did yesterday. Let me bring the camera in here so you can actually, I'm recording this really twice so we can make sure we get all this content. Okay, here we are at the New York Post. This was released on the 18th, I believe earlier this morning at 10:53 a.m. It says, cause of Texas fertilizer plant blast that killed up to 15 suspicious. For those of you saying that we're jumping to conclusions here, that it was just an accident. Sure, just an accident, just a coincidence. This happens in Waco. Oh yeah, it's not linked to Boston. Sure, you know it. Just a random coincidental event, just like Iraq, just like September 11th, and the follow-up of the Patriot Act, etc. These are all just coincidences. You go down here, it says police in Texas say it's not clear how many people remain trapped in the rubble after a fertilizer plant explosion that killed as many as 15 people and injured more than 160 others, etc., etc. There were some official reports on this late last night. I was tweeting it. I was up way into the early morning, some 2, 3 o'clock here Arizona time. So we've been literally working around the clock here the past 72 hours. Senior Obama administration officials said a series of briefings overnight have produced concerns that the Texas blast could have been at least criminal in nature. At least criminal in nature. Authorities are trying to contain their speculation for fear of causing a panic. But the official told the Post the cause of the blast is suspicious. Now look, creating a panic is exactly what the Obama administration wants to do. That is the agenda. Raise the terror alert. Remember they did this post-September 11th, code red, it goes white hot. That's when people give up their liberties. That's when they will be able to propagandize the American public and force the hand. It's the equivalent of pulling the Trump card at the Senate. Now they'll suddenly get the 60 votes that they need. The pressure will increase on Capitol Hill, and Obama will get his gun confiscation / legislation approved. And he'll get the full stamp of approval from the American people. So I encourage you to read that story, share it, spread the word. Again, that's the New York Post. We go back here to North Korea, and WND did a very good report on this. I think they do a pretty good job as an alternative media organization. It says, new suspect in Boston bombing, North Korea. As you go to the article here, this is one of the few outlets that actually connected the dots that many of you, I think, have missed. And maybe I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, but many of the mainstream is clearly missed. The Boston Marathon bombing that killed 3 people and wounded more than 180 was on the same day as the 101st anniversary of the birthday of North Korean founder Kim II Sung, raising questions among analysts whether Pyongyang, as in some of its past terrorism, uses proxies to carry out the attack in the U.S. So remember, days before the Boston blast, days before it, North Korea says it was going to launch an attack without warning at any moment at South Korea and at U.S. interests. Now, of course, there's been a lot of rumors circulating through Twitter, etc. A lot of those rumors have been dispelled. Some of them are not real. But clearly, there has been a propaganda effort here to spread fear among the American people, and it's a connection that many people have not made and that are not making. That this was all coming from North Korea, which in my opinion was coming from the CIA and the FBI and the propaganda machine here in the United States internally, and then they began and have begun setting off the bombs. The question that I have, and what I am most concerned about, is that this very much looks like a series of planned terror attacks to me. Again, I believe Waco is linked, clearly, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. Again, that is my opinion. Everything inside of me tells me that that is the case. But what really worries me, and is keeping me up at night, quite frankly, is how the linking nature of all of this, how they keep increasing the frequency in a very short period of time. It's like the stock market when they crash the markets and the big players are getting out, where they're pushing this agenda of terror strike, of blast, of explosion, of Boston, of Waco, of Sandy Hook, to the point where we can't take it anymore and we eventually just give up all of our freedoms. So this is another article I would encourage you to read. Here we see from International Business Times, this is what people are saying in their Twitter feeds. North Korea are probably the source of the Boston Marathon explosions. I blame North Korea for this explosion at the Boston Marathon. I really hope that this bombing of the Boston Marathon was just a random crazy act and not all linked with North Korea. Explosions at the Boston Marathon? RIP North Korea, RIP North Korea, nice knowing you, etc., etc. Then they go down here and they start tying it into the Tea Party, which was my first assessment. Gut instinct said it day one, video one, literally within minutes after the attack. They're also linking and trying to propagandize this to the Tea Party. It says Boston Marathon explosion, I bet is the work of some radical Tea Party asshole. I'm calling it now, just because it's Boston on tax day. That's from a guy named Lex. Boston Tea Party, Boston Massacre, Boston Marathon, seeing a pattern. Boston Marathon, tax day, etc., etc. Now, a lot of these people tweeting are just really not informed Americans. They're buying into the North Korean propaganda, etc. But again, propaganda is all about psychology. It's all about planning these internal devices and planning the internal message into your mind and conditioning you through fear and conditioning you through a repeated process. You know, it's like images flashing on the screen. You see it enough repeatedly, you begin to believe it. You can't. You keep seeing what they are pitching you. You don't even know why you're thinking and connecting the dots this way. That's what it is. I mean, it's very effective. This stuff is studied. They spend millions of dollars, a year to study this sort of thing. And this has been part of many declassified operations throughout history. Go look it up for yourself. I don't have time to, baby you and explain every occurrence, specifically. The Drudge Report, very interesting. Napolitano comes out. I believe this is actually from today, during a House hearing this morning. She actually says, when Forbes magazine or Drudge or some reputable news sources start to repeat the numbers cease to become internet rumors and they start having some credibility. I will tell you, we found it so inherently unbelievable that statements would be made, it was hard to ascribe credibility to them. I don't know if I'd put Forbes and Drudge in the same sentence. Now, Napolitano is responding to the reports that we broke, and a lot of us within the AMTV and alternative media community broke on the large DHS ammunition purchases, also the purchases of MRAPs, these vehicles, one which I cited and spotted and videotaped in Tucson randomly the other day, one day, ironically, before the blast in Boston. So literally making a public statement. I mean, Janet Napolitano has to come out and say that the Drudge Report is not a legitimate source of news. Well, I don't really know if this lady knows what she's talking about, because the Drudge Report doesn't report news. They link to news. In Forbes, Forbes, according to the mainstream, is a very credible news source. So are you saying Forbes magazine is lying? Forbes is the one that didn't break, but they actually gave some credibility to the mainstream sheeple that this wasn't bullshit. They're the ones that put out the article on the large DHS ammunition purchase. So, again, the only people not credible here are Janet Napolitano, is the DHS, is the Obama administration. That's very interesting. Goes on and on here. I watched these reports yesterday. You can see the blast. Grim search continues. We'll find out what the casualty count is here. Potentially anywhere from dozens to hundreds of people. It rocked over 70 buildings. An apartment complex. They had to get out of retirement. Old person's home that had to be evacuated, etc. A lot of smoke inhalation from a lot of these people. Very scary. Phillies pitcher Jonathan Papelbon, if I'm saying his name correctly, says Obama is out for the guns. Again, just another person in the limelight, basically just telling you, look, this is all about confiscation. You can read that story. It goes on and on here. Also, InfoWars covered, along with a few other sources, Obama covering up Saudi link to Boston bombing. The original Saudi national that I called bullshit on from the very second they came out with it, that they later said and cleared, who lived at the Revere Apartments, by the way, the Revere Apartments. Again, the Illuminists like to use a lot of symbology, like to connect things, use specific days like Patriot Day, etc. for the bombings. You pick up on these things when you do this, like I do, long enough. He is actually being deported, suddenly. He's being deported. He's cleared. He's not a suspect. But then it appears that the Obama administration is somehow covering their ass and covering up the accusation that this was the guy. So it's almost as if the AMTV alternative media has discredited these stories, and then they had to backtrack and now cover it up, and now they're deporting them on grounds of national security. So that to me is another very major warning sign. It says, I just learned from my own sources that he is now going to be deported on national security grounds next Tuesday, which is very unusual. Emerson told Fox News. So again, this is not just suspicious. This is in my opinion credible, corroborating evidence. At the very least, even if you don't buy into conspiracy theories or whatnot, should be investigated. It should be aggressively questioned by anybody that wants the truth, anybody that wants to hold whoever it was that killed these people at the Boston explosion, killed these people in Waco. It's not just suspicious. No, in my opinion, it's linked, my friends. It is linked without a shadow of a doubt. What I'm very afraid of and what we need to be looking for is, again, what's the next domino to fall? Because if I was the Obama administration, if I was a criminal, if I'm to think like a terrorist, I would sequence so many of these attacks in a very high frequency in a short period of time to literally raise the fear and terror level to a point where honestly Americans literally are so shocked. It's that shock and awe effect where they literally can't take it anymore, so that they can pass this authoritarian legislation, take away our freedom. This again is the agenda. Whether or not you want to believe it or not, America is engaged in a secession movement right now. There's states like Texas that clearly want to disengage from the Union. We are dealing with a financial collapse, a currency crisis. Look at how Cyprus, you can't even get your money out of the bank accounts. Same thing is happening here in the United States. When you mix all this together, when you mix this ideological religious war that's currently taking place, the forces of good versus evil, currency crisis, the economic debt problem that we have, everything that's going on financially, you mix that with the flashpoint in North Korea, the propagandization of all of that, the internal struggle and conflict here at home, the war that is clearly occurring here at home, the Patriot movement, all these displaced, pissed off, angry people that want to hold our politicians accountable, the John Corzines of the world that literally continue, who have raped us, who have stolen billions of dollars and still walk around scot-free because they've contributed and donated millions and millions of dollars to the Obama administration. All these people are friends. Not a single one of these Wall Street banks or criminals have been held to the fire and actually prosecuted and jailed and sent to federal pound-me-in-the-ass prison for their crimes. Trillions of dollars are stolen from the American people. This is all interconnected, and it leads to one thing, America. It leads to one darn thing, something that's repeated again and again in history before. It all leads to war. It is the recipe for war. And it's why a regular guy like me on the internet about 3-4 years ago came on camera and told you, this is the recipe for war. War is coming. Watch and learn, America. Watch and learn. This is what is coming to the United States. Not coming anymore. It's already here. These staged terror attacks, higher and higher frequencies, more to come. You can't stop it. They'll use pressure cookers or use anything. But it's all about banning and limiting and stealing and taking away your freedom. It's about total power, total control, total world domination. And at the very height of it, in my opinion, I think is abundantly clear, is a very evil nature. We are involved in a religious, spiritual war. That is the big picture. That is the big picture. It's something that many people are afraid to address, question, investigate, learn for themselves. I encourage you to do it. At the end of the day, I just want a better world. I want more transparency. Again, here at AMTV, we're the watchdog. You're the watchdog. It's my job to hold these people accountable. It's my job to question and question more and to get into these people's faces and ask the questions nobody else has the balls to ask, report on the reports no one else has the balls to report on, and to make sure these people are held accountable. That's my job. I love you guys. I'm Christopher Green. You've been watching Greenwave TV, alternative media television, hard-hitting it in your face. Get this out to everybody. Share the truth before the next bomb goes off. I'm Christopher Green. Peace.